Welcome to Seward, Alaska, a charming coastal town often regarded as the gateway to Alaska's wilderness. Over the next few days, I'll be exploring the coastal scenery including glaciers, amazing wildlife, feeding puffins, riding sled dogs, and discovering why so many people consider Seward one of Alaska's must-visit destinations. Located approximately 125 miles south of Anchorage, Seward is easily reached by road or rail. I decided to take what is arguably one of the most scenic route aboard Alaska Railroad's coastal classic in Gold Star service, a journey that I featured in my previous video. The train took me to Seward Train Depot. The train station building is relatively modest but effective, and filled with passengers seeking some warmth from the cold gusts of winds. At the train depot, I immediately found and boarded a complimentary shuttle provided by my accommodation, the Seward Windsong Lodge, which is located just a few minutes' drive from downtown Seward. Upon arrival, the lodge immediately felt warm and inviting, with classic Alaskan timber architecture, a cozy fireplace, and rustic interiors that perfectly match the surrounding scenery. The guest rooms are spread across separate lodge buildings, giving the property a peaceful and spacious atmosphere. My room itself featured 2 queen beds and was decorated in warm natural tones with earthy aesthetics. The bathroom was rather clean and spacious and well appointed, and I have to say the locally made soap smelled amazing. The following morning I set out for breakfast, although I didn't get very far. I was immediately distracted by this incredible snow-capped mountain just across from the lodge. Crossing a small steel bridge that looked a bit worn over the Resurrect River brought me to this quiet little inlet, which turned out to be a beautiful place for a peaceful morning stroll before starting the day. Eventually though, it was time for me to think about breakfast, so I headed to the Resurrect Roadhouse, which is located on the same property as the Windsong Lodge. I was lucky enough to have been seated beside the large windows overlooking the surrounding mountains, and I opted for the breakfast buffet, which even included a reindeer sausage, definitely something I wasn't expecting to have for breakfast. After breakfast, I hopped on the complimentary shuttle into downtown Seward for today's main adventure, a 6-hour Kenai Fjords National Park cruise with major marine tours. Today's vessel is the Skana, and Captain Laura leading and narrating us on our journey. Following a quick safety briefing from the captain, we departed our slip and onto the marina. We cruised through Resurrection Bay and eventually entered the Gulf of Alaska. Lunch was included in the tour and I opted for the turkey sandwich together with an ice-cold lemonade. But honestly, I was far more interested in spending my time outside, taking in the spectacular scenery and hoping to spot some wildlife. Thankfully, Alaska certainly did not disappoint. Along the way, we encountered sea otters, Steller sea lions, and even orcas. How I wish I have a better camera, or at least a much longer lens to do these incredible animals justice. Soon afterwards, our captain turned towards the Holgate Glacier, a magnificent tidewater glacier flowing directly from the expansive Harding icefield. Towering above the fjord, it was easily one of the most spectacular sights of the cruise. One fine surprise though was watching the crew fish freshly carved glacial ice out of the water so everyone could take photos, or in my case, cool down my margarita. Before long, our 6-hour adventure came to an end as we make our way back to Seward Small Boat Harbour, which is now buzzing with fishing boats, small cruises like ours, and plenty of other activities. After disembarking, I decided to spend a little time exploring downtown Seward. Despite its relatively small size, the town has a wonderful atmosphere, with locally owned shops, charming waterfronts, colorful murals, and cozy cafes. One place I particularly enjoyed was the Resurrect Art Coffee House, which turned out to be the perfect place to sit down, relax, and recharge after a day out on the water. Just a short walk away is the Alaska SeaLife Center, where I had booked something I had been looking forward to for weeks, a private puffin feeding experience. Armed with my bucket of fish, I was told that someone might already be waiting for me. And lo and behold, as soon as I opened the door, Doris, one of the resident puffins, was already standing there. Well, I should probably clarify that I think Doris was actually waiting for the fish rather than for me. This was honestly such a once-in-a-lifetime experience. I didn't know that puffins are actually picky eaters, although it turns out that the local seagulls definitely aren't. To finish off the day, I headed over to the famous race waterfront for dinner in downtown Seward. I was fortunate enough to be seated beside the window overlooking the harbour, making it the perfect place to unwind after an unforgettable day. I decided to treat myself to a 3-course meal, starting with these beautifully seared scallops paired with a refreshing glass of Riesling. For the main course, I couldn't resist the local halibut fish and chips, before eventually finishing the night with a delicious creme brulee. The following morning after breakfast, it was time for some final adventures before leaving Seward. Today's destination was Seavey's IdidaRide, where I had the privilege of a private sled dog experience. After being picked up from the Windsong Lodge, we arrived at the kennel and learned about the incredible history of the IdidaRide Trail sled dog race, a grueling winter race spanning more than 1,000 miles across Alaskan wilderness. Even more impressively, my guide had actually completed the IdidaRide herself, and it was immediately obvious just how strong her bond was between herself and the dogs. Although I certainly wasn't racing across Alaska myself in the winter, this private sled dog experience was absolutely magical. Being able to glide through forests surrounded by snow-capped mountains while being pulled by such incredible dogs was something I'll never forget. And bonus, afterwards, I even got to spend time playing with the dogs, and of course the puppies as well. Puppy time was definitely the highlights of my trip. Since I still had a little time before heading back to Anchorage, I decided to visit the Exit Glacier. The Overlook Trail is relatively easy, involving roughly a 1-mile walk that gradually brings you closer to the glacier. One thing that really struck me was seeing the markers showing where the glacier once stood over the years. When this original viewing platform and rest area was built, visitors could actually walk right up and touch the glacier. Today, there's no glacier anywhere near it, and you need to walk a bit more to reach the glacier. Standing there really puts things into perspective. I decided to continue the hike, which was absolutely worth it. The view at the end was simply breathtaking, and I genuinely feel fortunate to have seen the Exit Glacier in person before it exits our lives for good. I honestly don't know whether I'll ever get the chance to see it like this again in my lifetime. Soon enough, it was time for me to make my way back to the Seward train depot to board the Alaska Road Coastal Classic yet again, but this time back to Anchorage. But for just a few days, Seward completely exceeded my expectations. From the spectacular glaciers and unforgettable wildlife encounters to feeding puffins, it's easy to understand why so many travelers consider Seward one of Alaska's highlights. If you've ever visited Seward or ridden the Alaska Railroad, I would genuinely love to hear about your experiences, so feel free to leave a comment below. Thank you so much for joining me on another adventure, and I'll see you on the next journey.